inside the Elimination Chamber. Andre the Giant was once arrested. In 1989, Andre was wrestling a match against the Ultimate Warrior in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. A local cameraman was there to film the show, but Andre told him not to record his match. The cameraman didn't, but for some reason, Andre thought he did. The Giant slapped the man and destroyed the camera. A police officer who was overseeing the event saw this and told Andre he was being arrested. Andre said no, so the officer explained it wasn't a big problem and Andre would be released after posting bail. The Giant complied, but he refused to be handcuffed. The officer obliged, and after booking the 8th wonder of the world, Andre was freed. The Giant ended up being fined $100 for criminal mischief and had to pay $233 for the camera he broke. Here is proof that time travelers have appeared at WWE shows. During a confrontation between The Rock and Mankind in 1999, a fan held up a sign that said, "Enzo is a jabroni." Enzo Amore wouldn't make his WWE debut until 14 years later. During a match between JBL and Rey Mysterio, someone had a sign that said Triple H fears CM Punk. A year before Punk made his WWE debut, and long before Triple H and CM Punk had real-life backstage issues with each other. In 2003, a sign appeared saying V1 has been deleted, referring to Matt Hardy, who wouldn't become Broken Matt Hardy until 13 years later. John Cena once appeared at a different wrestling company's show while he was the WWE champion. In 2007, the company Chaotic Wrestling was hosting an event in Bayfield, Massachusetts that benefited several charities. Cena was the special guest referee for the main event match, but he wasn't the only WWE star there. During the match, Vince McMahon walked into the ring and slapped the WWE champion. Cena responded by giving his boss an attitude adjustment and then gave a second AA to one of the wrestlers. John Cena ruled the match disqualification and raised the hand of the winner. Why does Hulk Hogan say brother all the time?
Well, let me tell you something, brother!
After the first WrestleMania in 1985, Hogan and WWE started to see a surge in popularity. Because of this, Hogan started doing more media appearances, which meant he had to talk to a lot more people. In some cases, the Hulkster would meet 100 to 200 people in one day. It became impossible to remember everyone's name, so Hogan started calling people brother instead. Bill Goldberg did not want to be called Goldberg. When he was trained to become a wrestler, Bill had to come up with a ring name. He ended up deciding to call himself the Hybrid. However, WCW, the company he was wrestling for, said he couldn't use it because they wouldn't be able to sell merchandise. Goldberg said he would never be popular enough to sell anything. WCW disagreed and decided to use Bill Goldberg's surname, which he's continued to be called ever since. This WWE mystery has never been solved. In 2005, WWE had a 3-week-long draft. The WWE champion, John Cena, was the first wrestler drafted, and he went from SmackDown to Raw. This left SmackDown without a world title, so the general manager, Teddy Long, announced there'd be a new SmackDown championship. A 6-man elimination match was set up to crown the new champion, which was won by JBL. Teddy Long had the SmackDown title in a black bag, but revealed that the World Heavyweight Champion, Batista, had been drafted to SmackDown. Therefore, the new world title was not needed. Fans never got to see what the title looked like, and it's still unknown what was inside the bag. You do not want to have a match against this wrestler in November. On November 8th, 2005, Eddie Guerrero wrestled a match against Mr. Kennedy. 5 days later, Eddie died due to heart failure. 4 years later, on November 28th, 2009, Mr. Kennedy wrestled Umaga. 6 days later, Umaga would suffer a heart attack and passed away. What makes it even creepier is that Umaga's real name was Eddie. Another wrestler died the same day as Chris Benoit. On June 24, 2007, a retired wrestler named Biff Wellington was found dead in his home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The cause of death was a heart attack. What makes it even creepier is that Wellington was one of Chris Benoit's first tag team partners, and they even won a championship together. CM Punk tried to ban his own mother from attending WWE shows. In 2013, Punk revealed he had given his mom over $100,000, but she threatened him once Punk stopped sending her money. One of the threats was to release potentially embarrassing information about her son, which CM Punk thought had to do with him getting arrested while in school. Punk filed a restraining order against his mom, which was granted. He also asked the court to ban her from WWE shows, but it wasn't revealed if the judge granted that request. Do WWE wrestlers get paid when they're injured? Yes and no. Wrestlers will still get royalties from the sales of their merchandise and from the shows they've already appeared on. However, they will make less since wrestlers are also paid when they wrestle. Additionally, merchandise sales will likely decrease if a wrestler is not at WWE shows. This is one reason why wrestlers will sometimes keep their injuries a secret. However, all WWE wrestlers have a downside guarantee. If a wrestler has a guarantee of $100,000 and they only make $75,000 during the year because they are out with an injury, then WWE will give them $25,000 to make up the difference. Did this wrestler win the WWE Championship by accident? Sheamus won the WWE title just 166 days after making his debut. Not only that, but he defeated John Cena to win the belt, and he did it without cheating. However, what really makes it seem like an accident is the way Sheamus won. He fought Cena in a tables match. Both men fell off a turnbuckle and landed on tables, but Sheamus' table didn't break. This led to some fans wondering if Sheamus messed up the ending and accidentally won the WWE title. It's believed that the plan was for Sheamus to go through the table, but he would still be awarded the WWE Championship. The Celtic Warrior later confirmed in an interview that he was told before the match that he was going to win the WWE title. Does WWE pay for a wrestler's medical expenses if they get injured? The answer is sometimes yes and other times no. If a wrestler gets injured during a match, then WWE covers 100% of the medical costs. However, WWE only covers in-ring injuries. For any other injury, wrestlers are on their own. For example, Cody Rhodes tore his pectoral muscle during training. Since it happened outside of WWE, Cody had to pay the medical expenses himself. This WWE match was only 2 seconds long. On the September 4th, 2000 episode of Raw, Taz demanded 2 matches, one against Chris Jericho and the other against Jerry Lawler. The Raw commissioner, Mick Foley, decided to put Taz in a tag team match against both men, and he had a surprise tag team partner for the human suplex machine. The mystery partner turned out to be Midian. This caught Taz off guard, which led to this. One WWE wrestler made The Undertaker so angry that Taker was ready to fight him for real. The wrestler Mabel, also known as Viscera, was infamous for accidentally injuring his opponents. He even broke The Undertaker's orbital bone in 1995. However, during the 1996 Royal Rumble match, Mabel hurt yet another wrestler. Undertaker became livid backstage and started taping his fists. Luckily, the dead man didn't resort to violence, but Mabel was fired shortly after this incident. Ric Flair once had to pay $5,000 because he refused to take a picture. At the Unforgiven pay-per-view in 2005, Flair fought Carlito for the Intercontinental Championship. The Nature Boy won, and after the match, WWE wanted to get a picture of Ric with the belt. However, Flair refused because he would have to take off his shirt, which he didn't want to out of pride. WWE ended up fining the champion $5,000 for not taking the picture. A WWE commentator once beat a wrestler in a real fight. In 2008, WWE was doing its yearly Tribute to the Troops show in Iraq. JBL had been hazing and pulling pranks on his co-workers, which included dumping ice on ring announcer Lillian Garcia while she was asleep. Another recipient of JBL's bullying was commentator Joey Styles. Styles, though, didn't take it and ended up punching the former WWE champion in the face. Joey's strike ended up giving JBL a black eye, which could faintly be seen on TV a few days after the incident. According to those who were there, JBL was a lot quieter after being punched. Before Brock Lesnar, several other wrestlers were considered to break The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. One of them was Edge, but the Radar superstar refused because of how much respect he had for the Phenom. Mark Henry was also considered to end the streak. While it never got that far, Henry said he would have refused if asked. However, according to an interview that The Undertaker did with Ariel Helwani, Vince McMahon at one point wanted Vladimir Kozlov to end the WrestleMania streak. Why did WWE ban Seth Rollins' curb stop finisher? After winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 31, Rollins appeared the next morning on The Today Show. During the program, footage of Seth hitting the curb stop was shown multiple times. Vince McMahon thought the move would easily be imitated by children and didn't want the WWE Champion to be a negative influence. In the aftermath, Rollins used the ripcord knee and pedigree as his new finishers. However, 3 years later, Rollins reopened the conversation about the curb stomp with McMahon. Seth made his case, and Vince allowed Rollins to use his old finisher. However, it was shortened to just the stomp to lessen the violent name and connotation. One WWE moment was so painful that it almost made Kofi Kingston cry. In 2019, Kofi was in a match with Eric Rowan. Rowan got himself disqualified after he hit Kingston with a chair. However, Eric hit Kofi super hard, and Kingston later described it as the worst pain he had ever felt in a wrestling match. Kofi was almost about to cry because of how painful the move was, but he managed to hold it in since he didn't want to be seen crying in front of all the fans. CM Punk and Booker T had real beef with each other backstage, and it was hilarious. While in the locker room with the other wrestlers, CM Punk got up and said, "As the locker room leader, I'm telling all of you guys to pick up your trash." While some of the wrestlers saw Punk as the leader, Booker T did not. To show that, Booker literally threw his trash on the floor right after CM Punk made his command. In 1998, an 11-year-old kid asked Stone Cold Steve Austin what he thought of Goldberg. Here's what Austin said.
What do you think of Goldberg?
I think he's just fine at what he does, but he does a pretty good job of copying me, but he doesn't talk very much. I have nothing personal against him. He's got to make it up too.
Santino Marella almost went broke trying to become a WWE wrestler. In 2005, Santino moved from his home in Ontario, Canada, and began training at WWE's development system, Ohio Valley Wrestling. Marella was a student, so he wasn't being paid, and since he wasn't a US citizen, he couldn't work either. Santino used all of his savings to survive, and even had to borrow $400 from his mom at one point. However, right when his bank account hit zero, WWE gave Marella a call and signed him to a contract. A cameraman nearly had his career destroyed on live TV. During WCW's Halloween Havoc pay-per-view broadcast, a photographer walked in front of the live camera and blocked the shot. A WCW staff member then ran up to him and yelled this.
Billy Silverman's even asking for a bell here to get some help out, to try to get some attention out.
When Sin Cara came to WWE, he was really excited to meet Curt Hawkins, but it's not for the reason you're thinking. Curt was surprised by this, considering he had only been in WWE for a few years and hadn't wrestled in many big matches. After talking with his co-workers, Curt found out that the reason Sin Cara was excited to meet him was because Sin Cara thought Curt Hawkins was Edge. In January 2020, Becky Lynch said this.
I think the best thing for the women's division right now is that we eliminate the tournament.
One day after Lynch said this, WWE announced they would remove the word women's from the NXT Women's Championship, and the title would simply be known as the NXT Championship. This caused confusion for obvious reasons, since there was already a title called the NXT Championship. Less than 2 weeks after the name change, the title went back to being called the NXT Women's Championship. A WWE wrestler was going to kill Paul Heyman on live TV. Tommy Dreamer was the heart and soul of ECW, but during his time with the company, he turned down much better contracts with WWE. This was due in part to the owner of ECW, Paul Heyman, persuading Tommy to stay. When ECW went out of business in 2001, Dreamer was left without a job and forced to live with his parents. Dreamer also learned that Heyman had secretly been getting paid by WWE for years. Even worse, Tommy was told he was going to make his WWE debut at WrestleMania 17, but plans fell through. This put Dreamer in a very dark place, and he got a hold of a gun. His plan was to go to WrestleMania 17, jump the barricade, shoot Paul Heyman, who was doing commentary, and then turn the gun on himself. As he was contemplating all this, Tommy Dreamer got a call from a number he didn't recognize. He let it go to voicemail, and the recording said, "Hey Tommy, it's Jim Ross. Just want to let you know we are still thinking about you. We are going to get it done. Just gotta hang tight. Thank you." This is all Dreamer needed to turn everything around. Did WWE steal this idea from a fan? In July 2021, Roman Reigns and his real-life cousins, Jimmy and Jey Uso, teamed up to form a faction called the Bloodline. However, back in April 2017, a WWE fan posted on Reddit saying that the Usos and Roman Reigns should form a heel group. This person even had a name for it, the Bloodline. Mark Henry once attacked a WWE crew member for looking at a female wrestler. AJ Lee was stretching backstage and was being stared at by a local WWE crew member. Mark Henry saw what the man was doing and lifted him up and pinned him against the wall. It's unknown what Henry did to the crew member, but AJ Lee became ecstatic over what Mark did for her. Kurt Angle once got mad at John Cena and beat him up for real. Back when John Cena was new to WWE, he was having a match against the Olympic gold medalist at a non-televised event. During the match, Cena left the ring and went into the crowd. He grabbed a giant foam finger and used it to taunt Kurt Angle. The crowd liked it, but Angle was upset John Cena did this. Once Cena was back in the ring, Kurt beat Cena half to death. They patched things up after the show, and over a decade later, John Cena inducted Kurt Angle into the WWE Hall of Fame. Someone actually sold a bag of air from WrestleMania 39. The air was listed on eBay 10 days after the show, and of course, it was listed as brand new. 12 bids were placed in the bag of air, and it ultimately sold for a total of $19.60. Only hardcore WWE fans understand this joke. In June 2012, Vince McMahon confronted the Raw general manager, John Laurinaitis, and said this.
You're the astute businessman who actually hired the wrong one-legged wrestler.
Back in 2003, WWE wanted to hire a wrestler named Zach Gowen, who only had one leg due to childhood cancer. John Laurinaitis was the director of talent relations at the time and just had to send the contract to Zach Gowen. However, Laurinaitis accidentally sent the contract to a man named Steve Chamberlain, who was also a one-legged wrestler. The contract was rescinded and Gowen was eventually hired, but Vince McMahon clearly never let John Laurinaitis forget his mistake. Why does Jeff Hardy wear face paint? Jeff is an artist and loves to paint. However, once he became a full-time wrestler, Jeff found it difficult to be artistic due to time and needing something to paint on. Hardy then found a solution, use his face as the canvas and incorporate it into his wrestling persona. This is why Rey Mysterio is the GOAT. Rey was in a battle royal on Raw in 2022, where the winner would get a spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Matt Riddle was meant to win the match, but at one point, his legs were dangerously close to touching the floor. To prevent a possible disaster, Rey, who had already been eliminated, rolled underneath Riddle to protect him in case Matt slipped. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon's daughter is trained to be a wrestler, but here's why you probably won't see her in WWE anytime soon. In 2019, Stephanie said that at the age of 13, her oldest child, Aurora, was learning the family business. However, Aurora will only be 17 years old in 2023, and it's believed Triple H and Stephanie will encourage her to finish her education before working for WWE. There are a few tricks WWE uses to make their wrestlers seem taller than they actually are. One is the referees. WWE won't even consider hiring someone to be a referee if they are 6 feet or taller. The shorter the referee, the taller a wrestler will appear. Likewise, WWE often hires petite women to be backstage interviewers and will have them go barefoot so they appear as short as possible next to the wrestlers. In some cases, WWE will even have an interviewer spread out their legs to make them appear shorter. Wrestlers will also give themselves a few extra inches of height by wearing lifts in their boots. Chris Jericho, Mick Foley, and Kane all wore special boots at one point in their career to make them look a little taller.
When work's underway, play Red Bull buzzing through the workday. Keep your eyes on the clock, and when the countdown reaches 0, hit the buzzer to get Red Bull delivered straight to your door. Tap now to buzz in. Red Bull gives you wings.
If Jon Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose, ever throws a water bottle at you, do not throw it away. Once Ambrose left WWE and joined AEW, he took a page out of Triple H's playbook and started bringing a water bottle with him to the ring. Moxley always throws it into the crowd, but before doing that, he puts his autograph on the bottle. Here's why giving the too sweet hand gesture could land you in jail. While WWE was doing a tour in Europe in the 90s, X-Pac saw some local people doing a gesture which they called the Wolf Salute. He shared it with his friends, Kevin Nash, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, who called it the Too Sweet. The wrestlers would start flashing the gesture on TV, and it eventually became an iconic symbol. However, before all that, the Too Sweet gesture was used by the Grey Wolves organization, a far-right neo-fascist group in Turkey. The Too Sweet, or Wolf Salute, is banned in France and Austria, and is often compared to the Nazi salute. John Cena's iconic theme song actually copied 3 other songs. This is why John Cena is the GOAT. Cena has granted over 650 wishes for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's easy to say that Cena did all that just to make himself look good, but that's not true at all. John Cena did not want to publicly share the wishes he was granting, and for a while, he didn't. Cena only agreed to after Vince McMahon told him that letting people know about the work Cena was doing would make them more inclined to get involved and support Make-A-Wish. The Big Show once pooped himself while wrestling a match. During a WWE show in South Africa, the world's largest athlete was having a match with Brock Lesnar. Big Show had eaten some bad food before the match, which led to something unfortunate happening. Lesnar gave Big Show the F5 that then caused Big Show to have a messy accident. Brock thought it was hilarious, but Big Show didn't find it as humorous. WWE once had to censor Randy Orton's RKO because it was too violent. In 2012, WWE launched a show called Saturday Morning Slam. Unlike WWE's other shows that were rated PG, Saturday Morning Slam was rated G. This meant wrestling moves that were too violent couldn't be shown. Even some WWE theme songs had to be censored. When Randy Orton made his first appearance on Saturday Morning Slam, he went to his opponent with the RKO. The finisher was too violent for a G-rated show, so the camera awkwardly cut away and missed the move.
Randy Orton, looking for the RKO.
Now sure, everyone understandably loves reminiscing about things like the legendary Eddie Guerrero winning the big one, the rise of Batista, Brock Lesnar and John Cena, and Trish Stratus and Lita main eventing Monday Night Raw. But what about those other magnificent, scarcely believable and often quite deranged occurrences this balmy, ruthless aggression era had to offer? Those ones that folks have largely just forgotten about, or maybe don't talk about as much. Well, have we got the list for you, baby? Because from the minds of both myself and the great Michael Sidgwick, here are 20 incredible WWE Ruthless Aggression era moments that nobody ever talks about. Number 20, the John Cena versus Great Khali feud. So before we get started, the period that we're going to cover here is between 2002 and 2008, because that's what people tend to think of when they think of the Ruthless Aggression era, so that's what we're going to do. Now we've got that out of the way, Ruthless Aggression poster boy John Cena entered improbably awesome performances at Judgment Day and One Night Stand in 2007. Somehow, through his motivation, Arn Anderson's layouts, or perhaps a mystical force from up high, the man carried the Great Khali to something compelling and dynamic. Twice! Now, the Judgment Day main event wasn't necessarily good. Cena's opening barrage of punches made Shane McMahon look like Sugar Ray Robinson, for crying out loud, but it was inordinately effective. Cena at least threw himself down to the mat with a motivated snap. He knew that he had to create movement and some nightmarish oral thuds to get this over. Khali played his role remarkably well too, aiming his awful strikes at Cena's ears and even lifting his leg higher than he ever had in his life to connect with a back kick. It was majestic. The One Night Stand match was even better. An arena-wide brawl, it was significantly less tropey than many plunder matches WWE presents today. Virtually every single weapon that was used, like cameras and the crane, actually belonged in that environment, making it feel like a desperate Cena was grabbing whatever he could get his hands on to survive this onslaught. It was great stuff. Number 19, Velocity going nuts. Now, while the main roster was infested during Ruthless Aggression with some of the worst, greenest, most generic developmental atrocities you'll ever see, WWE did very gently flirt with the stylistic revolution on the nascent independent circuit. They signed Paul London, a fantastic, now severely underrated wrestler. He was super talented, but also handsome and telegenic, and thus, in the eyes of WWE and its soapy approach, more marketable than the rest. They still stuck him on C-Show Velocity and had him feud with Akio for ages though. WWE did not care about those matches, but the wrestlers did. They worked in vain, but treated every last one as an opportunity. Hypersonic aerial battles worked at a pace so blistering you could scarcely believe they were held under the WWE banner. This series wasn't just an exhibition of moves. A lot of thought went into it. In one match, Akio caught a London kick and sent him flying with a backflip. Now, usually this kind of counter only happens to allow the opponent to land on their feet and mount another attack. It's athletically impressive, but a bit contrived. This right here, though, was an actual attack. London bumped legs first on the ropes and then on his head with a horrific and rather awesome corkscrew motion. And more wrestlers should apply this level of intent to their work today, if you ask me. Number 18, one of the sickest matches ever. If Roderick Strong ever had cause to strangle out somebody's name, it wasn't when he was seeking the affections of Adam Cole. It was when he was getting pummeled half to death by Kurt Angle. Before he made a name for himself in Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Roderick Strong was sacrificed to Kurt Angle as part of the latter's gold medal invitational. If the inexperienced chancer could survive 3 minutes with Angle, he'd take the gold. Angle asked Strong what his chances were. Strong said he didn't know, but he did know that he could slap Angle right in the face. And he did, really hard. This incensed Angle, who chased Strong around the ring. When they met inside of it for 2 glorious minutes, they may well have worked the most violent match in WWE history. And that's no exaggeration, folks. Angle worked this match like it was a shoot. Even by his standards, his intensity was just disgusting. After an absolutely fantastic near fall, the red mist descended further when Angle came close to losing. He smashed Strong repeatedly in the back of the head after furiously paintbrushing his face with slaps. The closest wrestling ever got to the hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby meme, Angle battered the back of Strong's skull so viciously that it's a miracle his forearm wasn't covered in brain matter. Angle then held Strong in a cattle mutilation position before headbutting his skull, grinding his forehead on it, and then eating it. The man was unhinged. Thick platelets of blood somehow didn't pool on the canvas. A disgusting suplex and ankle lock later, and the massacre was done. Except it wasn't, since Angle hooked the ankle and refused to let go. How did this make it onto WWE TV? And while we're talking about sick matches, I want to know right now, what do you think's the sickest match that you have ever seen on television? You let me know in the comment section down below. It's gonna take something pretty special to top that. Number 17, the 2005 pay-per-view streak. 2004 and 2006 were amongst the worst years in WWE history. Some of the pay-per-views, I mean, geez. People do not exaggerate when they say how WCW dying killed the industry. The talent pool was a stream stream of polluted storm water heading straight into the drain. It was bleak, man. It was the Spirit Squad and the Dudley Boys with not a table in sight headlining pay-per-views bleak. 2005, though, was infinitely better. The promotion was still desperate to chase Attitude-era buzz and controversy, manifesting in the awful Muhammad Hassan character and the unspeakable angle that led to his write-off. But bloody hell, the April to June 5-in-a-row pay-per-view streak was, at the time, the best run in the history of the promotion. Shawn Michaels bringing out the most disturbing, vengeful version of Kurt Angle by showcasing his own amateur wrestling credentials, highlighted a WrestleMania 21 that was forward-thinking even at its most mid. Backlash was a bit more shaky, but Batista proved his staying power in a superior main event sequel. Judgment Day promoted one of the sickest over-deliveries in WWE history with that gruesome John Cena vs JBL I Quit headliner. The first one-night stand was astonishingly great and authentic. It was just unfathomably special. And then Vengeance remains to this day nothing less than an all-timer, with Shawn and Kurt creating magic yet again, and Cena and Batista atoning for their not great Mania performances with a pair of rippers. Number 16, Triple H and Ric Flair blow the roof off Survivor Series. The worst thing about Triple H in his reign of terror wasn't that he was boring, although he was slow, dull, and somehow smug with it. No, the worst thing was the sabotage. He made Scott Steiner look awful. He took 23 seconds to pin Booker T in what looked like a parody of the Gotta Crawl to Protect My Finish near fall spot before racism actually won. He decided to work Goldberg like he was training him on his first day at Ohio Valley Wrestling, and one of Goldberg's nuts might as well have been hanging out for what it did for his aura. But if Triple H liked or even respected you, well, you had a half chance of not looking like a complete has-been know-nothing loser. And, well, he liked Ric Flair. Now, you think that Flair and Trips going 27 minutes might be a nightmarish experience, but it was actually superb and well worth the runtime. It might shock you to learn that Flair, at 56 years old, was really quite good at convincing people that he could not stand up under his own power. I know, I'm just as surprised as you are. That very real triumph drove the remarkable tension of a hidden classic. And Triple H was outstanding when he wanted to be. He was a precision killer in there. And in one awesome spot, he blasted Flair caked in blood on the floor with a spinebuster. Flair's back was wrecked in his mid-20s, and he looked about 90 in Detroit that night. This felt like transgressive, dangerous, terrifying pro wrestling. Something Cody Rhodes might have studied ahead of AEW Double or Nothing 2019. Who knows? Number 15, Edge's Ric Flair impersonation skit. This one barely gets remembered for two reasons. Number 1, the D-Generation X Nation of Domination and New World Order 4 Horsemen sketches were far more infamous. And number 2, it's now difficult to recall a time in which Edge actually had patter. He plays a super intense and somewhat corny, vengeful badass these days to mixed results. He still has the odd one-liner in him, sure, but he's mostly known for his forehead vein now, as am I. Back in 2005, though, as the rated R superstar, he mocked Ric Flair's very real arrest for grabbing somebody by the throat in a road rage incident. While charges against Flair were eventually dropped when the witness to the assault failed to appear in court, that did not stop Edge from sending Flair up. The use of juxtaposition was brilliant. WWE could not have found a more bleak stretch of grey road, nor filmed on a more overcast day, as Edge, dressed as Flair, drove around in full gimmick. WWE, inadvertently perhaps, cast Flair as a total loser, whose tall tales of the glamorous travelling life were rather pathetic. Edge played it a bit like Shawn Michaels doing Hulk Hogan, every other word out of his mouth being woo! And in a great daft touch, instead of choking the victim, this Flair just chopped him. Number 4, Shawn Michaels and Triple H did have chemistry. Shawn Michaels and Triple H worked one great match together. Their SummerSlam 2002 war was a gripping, basic story elevated by Shawn's masterful selling. But elsewhere, they really took the PISS, didn't they? There are few things worse than a wrestling match that tries too hard to be good, to be worthy. At Bad Blood 2004, Shawn and Triple H went nearly 50 minutes in Hell in a Cell. It might be the most pretentious match of all time. They took a core idea. The spaces between the moves matter more than the moves themselves, and tried to be profound by lying around and doing absolutely nothing. The exhaustion was meant to reach the people, and oh, it did, but not in the way intended. The crowd was just bored to death. It says something about the absolute state of WWE in 2004, that, short of better options, fans actually voted for a rematch at Taboo Tuesday. Their bleak resignation was rewarded with a tighter, less less masturbatory effort, which, while still not exactly a classic, was basically SummerSlam 2002, this time Shawn selling his leg. What a sequel. In this current era of content-forward wrestling, a lot of modern guys should probably study how to actually work through a storyline injury, or just watch some Shawn Michaels matches, because this guy could do it. Michaels didn't just explode into a move and then clutch at his leg, he wrestled as if it was hanging off. The whole thing, mirroring his opponent's assaulted quad tears, looked like a match that a wrestler forced himself to gut through when he was hurt for real. That's how good Michaels was, baby. Number 13, this incredible Shawn Michaels facial. Shawn Michaels played heel against Hulk Hogan in their incredible 2005 series, and driven with pure defiance, he hammed it up in a bid to embarrass his rival for Hogan's sheer temerity throughout the creative process. It was magic. Michaels wasn't merely being his old brash self, he channeled the cutthroat shark of old, the guy who'd commit character assassinations just to get to the very top. He made Hogan look like a cringeworthy relic, a megalomaniac covered in wrinkly oil he called skin. It was fascinating, cathartic, and Michaels was simply so awesome in the 2000s that he made the parody of wrestling that was the SummerSlam main event feel, well, real. In a slightly less famous throwback to the old Shawn, though, Michaels executed the greatest fake-out in pro wrestling history when playing, since he had no choice, situational heel in Montreal. Less famous than his parody of Hogan, but far more scathing. When Bret Hart's music started playing in that arena, the place went absolutely nuts, and Michaels was priceless on the cell. He looked absolutely dumbfounded. He'd seen a ghost, and it wasn't a deer that he'd blasted to Kingdom Come returning to haunt him. It was Bret! Except it wasn't, and he just pissed himself laughing. Everyone was furious. It was great. It was great. Number 12, the best wrestling wedding ever. You might think wrestling fans are a bit of a nasty bunch. Some of them will call you terrible names for saying that an acclaimed wrestler might have one or two flaws to their game. Some of them will abuse you in your DMs for preferring one wrestling promotion to another.
10,
and
9,
yet
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.